In the spring of 1892 and fall of 1893 in Europe and the United States were organized large-scale celebrations to commemorate the 400th anniversary of the discovery of America. The Russian fleet was a welcome guest, but the only ship flying the Andreevsky flag was represented at the European Columbus Days, and even that one ended up off the coast of Spain by coincidence. But the story of the transatlantic voyage, depicted in the diaries of witnesses to the events, could well become the plot of an exciting blockbuster. In the first days of autumn 1892 an official dispatch was delivered to the Russian Ministry of Maritime Affairs informing them of the forthcoming celebrations of Columbus's discovery of the continent. It announced the personal presence of the President of the United States, as the United States was then called. The message ended with an official invitation to Russia to participate. Rumors swirled in the capital that a transatlantic expedition of a Russian squadron was being prepared, but at first there were no details that would allow the reliability of this information to be established. And no wonder the message from the American government indicated the centers of future celebrations: Chicago, where the anniversary exhibition was to open, and Hampton, which would be the center of events at sea. But instead of a date, a very imprecise time frame, April of the coming year, was given. It seems that at the time the dispatch was sent, the organizers of the festivities themselves had no more specific idea of when the maritime festivities they mentioned would take place. Most likely, they were in a hurry to certify to the Russians their ardent desire to see the Russian fleet on the Hudson. The Americans clearly did not want to repeat the mistake of the Spanish king. The young monarch also invited guests from the Russian Empire, and in all forms, and indicated the exact date of the holiday. But it was less than 2 weeks before the start of the Spanish Columbus Days, and a refusal to participate in the event was sent to Europe. On the whole, the tactic proved correct. The invitation of the states was accepted, and officials of the Maritime Department were instructed to begin preparations for the voyage of the Russian squadron across the ocean. This information did not remain secret for long. No joke, the highest-ranking officers of the Naval Department urgently returned to the capital from their summer vacations, and the Hydrographic Society was in a panic mood. Therefore the rumors circulating in the society were not groundless. Atlantic Squadron, the formation of a squadron, which was entrusted to represent the Russian Empire across the ocean, a matter of strategic importance. Although the time for open competition between Russia and Great Britain had not yet come, the selection of the participating ships was approached with extreme responsibility. The final list of the Russian Atlantic Squadron in 1893 consisted of 6 ships: the flagship, the armored cruiser, Dmitry Donskoy, battleships, General Admiral, and Nicholas I, and the cruiser, corvette, symbolized the cruisers, Admiral Nakhimov, Rinda, and Memory of Azov. The flagship of the squadron was in Nagasaki when preparations began, and the last 3 ships on the list were plowing the waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Therefore, a separate route was worked out for each ship. The reunion of the squadron was planned already off the coast of America. All except the Nikolai I arrived at the place on time. The heavy battleship arrived late and did not take part in the main celebrations. Russians impressed, Russians, too. The celebrations began on April 15th with a naval parade attended by 35 ships from 10 countries. The Russian squadron was the most numerous. At the same time, the appearance of the ships and crews was very different from that of the ships and crews arriving from other countries. Impeccable cleanliness and neatness, stressed courtesy officers were the object of admiration of the hosts of the festival and other guests. To tell the truth, one could not do without an amusing incident. On one of the boats of the cruiser, Dmitry Donskoy, the sailor on watch, fell asleep, and the small vessel was in the line of fire during the salute. The sailor survived, but the gunboat was left permanently at the bottom of the Hudson River. As part of the festivities, the crews of all the participating ships visited Chicago for the opening ceremony and visited Niagara Falls. The higher ranks took part in a gala dinner and ball. The head of the Russian squadron, Admiral Nikolai Alexandrovich Zelenoy, and the Russian officers received the personal attention of the American president. And the sailors marveled at the automated loading of coal on the foreign ships, warmed up during the big boat races, and visited the nature park on the banks of the Yellowstone River. By the way, the dinghy from the General Admiral finished first in the competition, and the American newspapers came out with loud headlines of articles discussing not only the physical strength of the sailors, but also the total power of the Russian ships. And they had not yet seen the battleship Nicholas I, which anchored in the Hudson River only in mid-July. On July 27, 1863, the General Admiral left American shores, and the next day the Dmitry Donskoy and the Rinda left Port New York. Another day later the rest of the Russian participants in the celebrations departed for combat missions. At this point the Atlantic Squadron ceased to exist.